Last week I talked about how to create a one-page strategic plan, or OPSP, for your business. Today I want to talk about creating an OPSP for your life. Now, to preface, this is going to be a two-part video. It's just too long to put into just one video. This first part, we're going to talk about why it works, why it's important to create an OPSP for yourself. And in next week's video, I'm going to talk to you specifically about how it works and give you the template to do it. I created the personal OPSP framework a little over 10 years ago when I wanted to set a clear focus on my own ambitions. And I wanted a better lightweight structure for me to be able to coach my mentees more effectively. It's a combination of different best practices I've gotten from scaling up and different life coaches like Tony Robbins, and kind of evolved it over the years. And it's been an amazing tool both personally and professionally. So let's talk a little bit about why. Why is it important? First, most people never do this. Or the last time they really sat down and thought about what it is that they wanted from the rest of their life was in college or in high school when they were picking their major. And too often, we get stuck in this day-to-day grind and just kind of let life happen to us instead of for us. We get consumed with all the things that there is to get done without slowing down and really thinking about what it is that we actually want to do. And the truth of the matter is, unless we explicitly tell the universe what it is that we want, then we're unlikely to get it. And a personal one-page strategic plan helps you take that first step towards doing that, telling the universe what you want by forcing yourself to write it down. I'd like to share a little story about what that looked like for one individual. About 10 years ago, I met a man named Jim, and Jim was a successful entrepreneur and businessman in his late 70s, and he was spending his retirement working with the University of Illinois on workplace psychology research. I met him through a mutual organization that we were part of, and Jim would sometimes take a handful of CEOs on a leadership retreat up at a camp that he owned and had renovated in northern Wisconsin. And shortly after meeting Jim, he invited me on one of these retreats. And I came to learn that the camp was actually the childhood camp that he grew up going to. The camp was going out of business, and he bought the land from the camp's owners because he had such fond memories of the camp. And he renovated the main clubhouse into this really beautiful event space, and he built vacation homes around the lake for himself and his children's families, and renovated all the cabins for guests and extended family members to stay in. It was awesome. It was a really cool place. And on our tour of the camp, he stopped at this garage, and this garage was filled with all of these amazing supercars. And he bought these, he told us, not because he was a collector or even a car guy, but just so his friends and his family could have the chance to drive these beautiful cars around the North Woods. And we got a chance to do that. I drove in a 2006 Ford GT. It was just an incredible, beautiful machine, driving through these backwoods of Wisconsin with the sun shining through the pines. I felt like I was in a car commercial. And I remember that ride, and Jim rode shotgun with me, and he said, "Jay, life is an art form. It is a canvas that is yours to paint, and it is your responsibility to make it beautiful." And that really stuck with me. At the end of our tour, he took us on a hike that led to this beautiful prairie. And there was this pasture of these local wildflowers overlooking this picturesque lake. And there was this kind of small, quaint, perfectly appointed cabin just sitting on the edge of the prairie. And he told us he would come out to this prairie at camp as a child and just sit and look at the flowers and the water for hours. And he said, "I've always loved this place. To me, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And I had this cabin built a few years ago." And then he paused and he looked at us and he said, "I'm going to die in this cabin, overlooking this prairie and this lake." And we kind of sat there stunned at this somber notion of Jim dying. It seemed so morose, but at the same time, I was just floored. He really had done it. His life was an art form. and he painted exactly how he wanted it to go, even up until his death. And 2 years later, unfortunately, Jim was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and several months later, he passed away in that cabin overlooking that prairie, which is both a sad and beautiful story from my perspective. And I tell you this story not because I expect you to share the same goals or values or perspectives as Jim, but because I believe there is incredible power in being intentional with our lives and writing things down. Writing down our intentions is how we paint the canvas. I've used this personal OPSP framework for my mentees for over 10 years, and I've watched in awe as they have accomplished not just their professional goals, but their personal dreams, from being promoted at work to starting a family to losing weight and cutting out alcohol, going on epic adventures, being elected to boards of nonprofits they really cared about, buying a vacation home they always dreamed of. And this same framework has guided me through my career journey and raising 5 kids with my wife of 17 years and fulfilling our own personal adventure and contribution goals. So next week, I'm going to take you through that framework of this personal one-page strategic plan. If you want the template forwarded to you in advance, just subscribe at the link below and you'll get the email with a link to the template. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. And remember, life is an art form. Thanks for listening.